Hello beautiful nerdy stitchers, this is Maeve back for an update on a very gloomy day. Today is Sunday, February 10th. It's raining, it's grey, it's dark. Hopefully the light is going to be okay. I hope you are all well. We're kind of getting fed up of winter, although it's not as bad as I know it has been for some of you, especially in the Midwest. Which is completely insane for me to imagine. But anyway, I'm very happy to be back. The only thing I have to do on such a grey day is stay home, watch and film flosstube, and then obviously stitch my day away. As has become a tradition, I would like to give some lovely thanks to the people who joined my world map of stitchers since the last video 5 weeks ago. The map is right here. As you may know, I kind of collect lovely comments from all over the world where people tell me their name and the area they live in. I now have 94 names, which is absolutely incredible. Obviously there aren't 94 pins because in some area you guys are kind of all together, especially I'm thinking in the United States. I think the most represented area is Maryland, I guess, which has loads and loads of stitchers, which is really cool. So let me say thank you and hello to the latest joiners. I'm very happy to report that I have a new name and a new pin in France, and this is for Magali, who lives in Grenoble. Grenoble is in the French Alps. There's Nicole from North Carolina. There's Shirley from Boerne, Texas. Now I'll get back to Shirley and the place she lives in because it's fascinating to me. And then there's Latisha, whom we all know and love. Latisha is the Crafty Curator on Instagram and flosstube. And I want to say a very special thank you to Latisha. She, in her latest video, she shouted me out, and she had absolutely lovely words to say, and I'm so very grateful. And the incredible thing for me is that Latisha has pinpointed exactly what I love and what my channel is about, and how I do and share cross stitch. And so Latisha, again, thank you so very much for your kind words. It was completely unexpected and it was really beautiful. So thank you, Latisha. And Latisha is in Maryland, as you may know. Then there's Monica. Monica lives in the UK, but she's from Poland, and she has required that I put a pin in Poland. So we now have an additional Eastern European stitcher. There's Kathy in Washington, New Jersey. There's Lisa in St. Paul, Minnesota. There's another Lisa DeRoe, who's in Washington, D.C. There's Ruby in Fife, Scotland. I'm very excited to have another Scottish stitcher. There's Angela in England. There's Angelica near Köln in Germany. And then last but not least, there's Trisha Stitch Witch 66 in Colorado. So, yeah, the map is really filling in now, and I'm really happy. I think I forgot a new Australian stitcher. Taryn is in Sydney, Australia. So as you can see, the Southern Hemisphere is also represented with a stitcher in South Africa, a few in Tasmania, Australia, and New Zealand, which is just awesome. So we're basically across the world, which is really good. Now, a tiny little tangent, if I may, about Boerne, Texas. So Shirley has very kindly shared her location, and she added, because she knows, she knew I'd be interested, she added that Boerne, Texas was founded in the mid-19th century by Germans who traveled from Darmstadt in Germany. Now, the reason why I got fascinated is because Boerne and other towns and cities in the area which I believe is in the San Antonio area in Texas, were actually founded by German families who left Germany not because they were oppressed, not because of religious dissents or pushed by whatever social difficulties or lack of, livelihoods where they lived. They actually moved on purely ideological ideological purposes. And that is not to say that they were a political minority or anything. What actually happened is that there were mid 19th century in Europe was a time where socialistic utopias were very trendy, and so people had the mind that they would build new societies out of nothing with socialistic ideas. So this is way before communism and socialism as we know them today. The idea was to live together and think a lot about how we wanted to live and the way we wanted to deal with each other. And so basically there's this group called the 40er auf Darmstadt, meaning the Darmstadt 40s, which were a group that actually funded a settlement in Texas, which to my mind is absolutely crazy. Imagine just because you want to try something new, you take families who are obviously willing to go, and then you cross the ocean, you cross the whole country to settle down in an area you've never been, and obviously is very, very different from the country you're leaving. And so this is how I'm sorry, I have to take a look at my notes, but this is how the Texel Hill Country Freethinker Latin Colony was born. So in the area of Boerne, Texas. So people went there, and basically their aim was to think about how they wanted to live. They spoke Latin, which is completely insane. They left with a very substantial amount of money. So this society in Germany granted them $10,000 in gold at the time, sent 200 families with everything. I mean, livestock, obviously all their belongings, and so they settled down in Texas. Now, what happened for some of those settlements is thinking and talking and discussing in Latin is very fine, but at some point you really need to, take care of your livelihood. So literally, I mean, growing crops and having livestock in order to have something to eat. And so some of the colonies, when the money dried up, didn't have any means to survive. And so some of the settlements just disappeared and regrouped. And so Boerne in Texas, where Shirley lives, is one of those surviving colonies, which became a town and has obviously lived through the centuries. So this was my little aparté, or my little tangent on a fascinating place and the way it was created. So Shirley, when you wrote that it wasn't very exotic to me, is just like completely insanely exotic. So thank you very much for sharing the history and allowing me to dig in a little. All right, enough rambling. So this was the new lovely stitchers on the world map. Thank you again very, very much, Latisha. Thank you, especially to you, for this. Now let's get into stitching. I've got a few whips to share with you. I've made progress in the last 5 weeks, and then I also have a plan, and I may do an update depending on how long my ramblings are, on a project that is taking shape for 2019. All right, let's jump into it. My travel project, as you may know, is the Garden Club series by Blackbird Designs. I am stitching this when I take a train, a plane, or whatever I can stitch in. And so I'm currently stitching all in a row, which is Garden Club series number 12. Let me show you the stitch model. This is what it's going to look like when it's finished. With a beautiful house with a purple roof on it. So I was at my mother's last weekend, and obviously I took the train to go there and come back, and so I've been able to work quite a bit on it. Last time you saw it, it only had the baskets of flowers, so there it is. So I had done the lower part. This here was barely started. As you can see, I've done this little bird, and the house is also well underway. I just need to stitch the roof for the house to be done. I mean, as usual, I love this piece. It's very easy. This is 20 count Ada. It's a mix of cotton and linen. It's rather raw and rustic, which I really like for this style of patterns. For those of you who may not have seen this, I've already stitched 3 of them, which you can see here. I have no idea what you're seeing. There you go. And so this is the 4th one I'm currently stitching. Where are you, Mev? There you go. So yeah, quite a bit of progress last weekend, which is cool. This is stitched with all the called for gast threads. And there's absolutely no rush in stitching those. It's just very pleasant to have something to be able to stitch in hand and take with me anywhere and everywhere. So I'm happy with this. Next one is going to be, the Amy Mitten Forgery 17 called Rachel Hallowell. I've discussed Amy Mitten. She is a pattern designer, cross-stitch designer, and she also hand dyes silks and fabric. So this is the pattern I'm currently stitching. Ew. It's just a crazy alphabet. It's absolutely stunning. It's very simple, and at the same time, it's very ornate. I mean, the letters, I don't know if you can see them. I'll show you this stitch piece, but the letters are kind of crazy. There you are. And it's very easy to stitch. It's a kit. Amy Mittens only sells her patterns as kits with linen and her hand-dyed silks, which are gorgeous. So let me show you where I'm at currently. I have to put something here. So I've done quite a bit since you last saw it. I think the last time I showed it to you, early Jan, had the first line done. First line of letters. Now it's really tone on tone, so oh geez, I hope you can see this. So the first line ADJKI, and then second line MSTB, and then I don't know if you can see. All right, the E and H are stitched, and I'm currently stitching on this very light, with this very light silk here, and this is going to be the C. Yeah, so on camera, this is like kind of ghostly, right? I mean, you can't barely see, you can barely see the stitches. I like this very, very much. The letters are randomly placed, which is awesome. They're very uneven, one next to the other, which again, I also very much appreciate. And the silks are beautiful. There are some greens and some tans and some browns. Let me, oh good, I don't have them with me. I'm sorry guys, I thought I was prepared, but apparently not. This is very strange, excuse me. Oh, there they are. So let me show you the silks, for those of you who hadn't seen them. There you go. Nice, very, very nice. Can you see the names? I've said this time and again. I mean, the butler did it, this dark brown here. The name is just awesome. There's corpse, autopsy, suspect, etc. This is really, really nice. So this is coming along really nicely. And again, it's an easy stitch. Very pleasant, very relaxing. You need to be counting, obviously, but once you get the gist of how the letters are designed, it's fairly easy to to go ahead and stitch. This is this is stitch 1 over 2 threads, and I believe the linen is some 32 count, I would say. There you are. Yeah, you can barely see the D, right? And then, can you, yeah, the E and the H, you can see a little. So there is the Amy Mitten Forgery 17. It really is beautiful and pleasant to stitch. So, you know, if I want to stitch something fairly easy, which requires a little bit of concentration, but not too much, it's really good. Now, the next one. I love all the pieces that I'm stitching, which is really cool. The next one is Germaine. Germaine is the little stitching lady from the pattern Needle and Thread by Brenda Gervais. And you've seen this pattern time and again, I believe. So this is the pattern. A lovely lady with a huge skirt and all her sewing notions in a little basket. You can see scissors, a needle, little birds. So this one is being stitched for my mom. Her birthday is late April. I do not think I will finish it on time, but I forgot to show you my finishes. That's okay. I'll do that afterwards. I'm sorry. So this is where I'm at. As you know, or as you may know, the grass took forever to stitch. But it has been done, and since then, I've been able to do some little tiny things. Look at this. Isn't it really cute? All right, so here it is. You've got this flower bed with one of the verse from the Sound of Music song, Doe, a female deer. And so I don't know if you can see this, but it says sew a needle pulling thread. And so far as you can see, I've stitched this giant plant, and then the scissors are underway. I've changed the lettering, and you've got also the 2 little tiny birds, one of which is holding a needle in its beak. I've changed the letters, so it had an A, B, C, D, E, F, and the reason I changed the letters, I don't know if you can see this, there's A, B, and then there's an S, and then another A, another B, and an E. The reason why I did this is because my mother's first name is Elizabeth. And obviously her, excuse me, her married name initial is E, like me. And her nickname, the way we call her, is Babs. That would be B-A-B-S. And so I thought it'd be fun to just, you know, put some random letters that actually do, excuse me, the initial of her last name, and then some random letters spelling her actual nickname. So it's kind of all over the place, but I like it. On the other side, there are some numbers. I think there's 1, 2, 3. I'll probably leave them at that. So this is what Needle and Thread by Brenda Gervais looks like. The fabric is a 28 count Merle by Picture This Plus, which is the called for. Only I chose 28 count in order rather than 32 to be able to stitch it 1 over 1. So it's tiny and I love it. So I've been doing some little motifs to take a break from this huge, like, monochromatic full coverage kind of part. At some point, however, and I think it's going to be over the weekend, what I'll do is just stitch the last motifs on this side, and then I'll tackle the skirts. And the skirt is going to take forever. Look at the size of this. But I have an idea to try and do the skirt a little bit special. and I'm hoping it'll work. I'll just let you know once I've started it. So as you can see, there's still like 3 little motifs back up here. Once they're done, I'll really start with the skirts, because that's going to take me another, I don't know, a month and a half or something. But I really do love this piece. So this lady has been dubbed Germaine, which is a very traditional French first name, probably more trendy in the first half of the 20th century than now. But anyway, so yeah, so this is Brenda Gervais' lovely pattern. Up next, what's up next? Yeah, all right. Now I can show you the focus piece. And you know that I've been stitching this for a while now. And I want to show you because I kind of reached a serious landmark here. So this is the beautiful Dragons of Sumatra by Ink Circles, which, as you may know, I'm stitching on a hand-dyed tentaculum fabric from Germany, and I'm stitching it with one of their hand-dyed silk called Waterhouse. All right. So last time, yeah, let me just show you. So 5 weeks ago, I was right here. So I had stitched this first half of the interior part of the pattern. I was, I think, down here, and then I still had this and these two things, beasts, to stitch before actually being done with the central thing. Well, guess what? I'm done with the inside part of the pattern. You ready? Ta-da! Look at this. This is just beautiful. So here it is, ladies and gents. Well, it's not finished, but at least, I mean, there's a good chunk done. I'm going to try and get closer to show you more details. Hopefully it's not going to turn everything blue or green or whatever. All right. So I've been able to stitch those huge dragon-like figures right here. There's another one there. And then those kind of like, I don't know, fantastical birds right here and there. There's a tiny one here. I mean, this is absolutely gorgeous. As you can see, the dark blue silk is variegated in a subtle way, which I really like, because it's just mainly dark, and then sometimes you've got stains as if, you know, it had faded over time, which I really, really like. I absolutely love the look of this. The silk is an au vert à soie overdyed, and it's gorgeous to stitch with. This has been quite a journey. I mean, the pattern and the process is brings me so much joy, and it's almost like meditative at some point. So see, if I stitch 2 hours or 2 hours and a half when I get back from work on weeknights, when I decide to stop, I just stare at it for long minutes and kind of get lost into, you know, the intricate details and the pattern and the beauty of the colors, and it really has something of a meditation feel to it. So both the stitching itself and then just the admiration, I guess, of the result is something that is completely unexpected for me, but has been going on for the last, I've started this early November, so it's been 3 months now, and it's just, I cannot get tired of it. So it's an incredible, incredible journey. There you go. As you can see, I've started the border. Now, here is the border. Let me talk about my plan. So first off, this silk here is the same colorway as this one, but it's not a 6-stranded Auvert à Soie, Soie d'Alger. It's another type of silk, still by Auvert à Soie. I'm going to, can I do that? Yes. I'm going to show you, sorry, the actual spool. So this is Soie Gobelin. It's another type of silk by Auvert à Soie. It comes off a spool, and it's a little bit thinner than one. Oh God, is that gonna? Let me try and do this properly. Okay, so it's thinner than one strand of a silk, of a 6-stranded silk Auvert à Soie. And it's shinier. It's really interesting. It's a little bit shinier. I think the mercerization process is not the same, and it's smoother, so it's a little bit trickier to stitch with. But what I'm thinking is, I don't know if it shows, it is, since it's slightly thinner, it has more of a lacy effect. Can you see the difference? I don't know if you can see this. So this border has been stitched with this Soie Gobelin, and then obviously here is the silk stranded Soie d'Alger. It's, yeah, I don't think you can see it on the screen, but it's slightly thinner, so it has a more like kind of lacy effect, which I love, and so I'm very happy, very excited to see the outcome once I'm more into the border. So there it is. Now, about this border, I have a thought. So there are kind of two parts to the border. There's an inner border right here, yeah, and then the outer border is a little bit thicker, right? My idea is actually to do, let me see if I can do this. So I'm going to stitch the inside border. I'm going to stitch this, which sticks out, right? Because this is part of the inner border, but it's just higher. And then this inner border all the way down here, I'm going to stitch this part here. And then this again is a little bit bigger. And then the inner borders, you know, continues. I am willing to try to stitch this inner border with those two sticky out parts without the exterior border. Does this make sense? And we'll see what it does. I might leave it that way. And the reason why is because this fabric is so stunning that I'm thinking if I leave more of it blended in the border, it might give it a really cool effect. So see, I'm going to do this first level of border and then see how it goes, share it with you guys, and maybe just call it, you know, a finish. We'll see. But that's the idea. Now, before I put this away, the lovely, lovely Darling Bluebell Mieke has sent me some love over the week. She sent me a very beautiful card with lots of blues, of course, and two tiny butterflies. This one is a wooden butterflies that is added on the card, which is really, really nice. Mieke, I did manage to understand what was put on this card, and with this card, look at what she got me. Oh my goodness, I cannot. Look at this. My second ever needle minder. I mean, can you, yeah, can you see this? Isn't it just, it was made for this piece. It's a starry night, beautiful, lovely golden stars. And this needle miner is from Deborah, who lives in Antwerp, Belgium, and she has just opened her Esty shop called Surimini. I'll be sure to put a link in the description box below for you to go and check out. And so she had shared those, and I just asked one question to Deborah, and Mieke just picked it up, and she actually sent one to me this week, which is so thoughtful, and it's beautiful. Look at this. I mean, it was meant for this piece. So Deborah and Mieke, thank you so very much. I love it, and it's just my second ever needle minder, so it's just perfect. It's perfect. There you go. So I am very, very, as always, happy with this piece. It's incredibly beautiful. Now, I forgot to show you a few finishes. So for Christmas, which is already a month and a half ago, I had stitched some tiny little things for my mom to use as ornaments, and so I had sent the stitch pieces, and then she finished them as ornaments. So this year we had chosen white, flax, and orange as colors for our Christmas decorations, and so here's what we did. I took them. We took all the Christmas decorations away last weekend. It was high time, and so I just took those little ornaments to show them to you. This was stitched on a random piece of linen that my mom had, and this is stitched with Bordur Paradise hand-dyed silks from Mieke Trebbe de Nice, and it's a lovely orange with a little bit of variegation. It's just beautiful. So this is one. So what she did is she cut the fabric in a circle, and then she put a tiny piece of cardboard inside, and then this is a beautiful orange silk that she had in her stash. So this is one. This one was stitched, I think, with an off-white au ver à soie silk. Tiny. I had found free patterns of snowflakes on internet, so it was really easy. This is another one, and then here's the last one. Another bright orange fabric, and then one last. Oh, this is too blurry. Can I? Yeah. There you go. So these were little tiny snowflake ornaments, which I thought I would share with you. And then the other two finishes, yes, two, but they're tiny. I had shared this on my last video. So my mom had gifted me with a little pattern called Miniature au Merle by L'air de Rien. Mieke had very kindly gifted me a beautiful hand-dyed cotton, again by Mieke Trebbe de Nice, called, I think, Cloverfield, yeah, which is this beautiful, crazy variegated thread. And so they were perfect for one another, I mean the pattern and the thread. And so here's what I did. The first version is here, stitched on a little piece of 36 count Edinburgh linen, hand-dyed by the beloved XJU Designs. And the colorway is poison green. You can't see the green, but it's actually slightly variegated, mottled. And it's a very pale sage green. And I mean, isn't that awesome? So this is the pattern as it was meant to be stitched. So in negative, so to speak, you leave the motifs unstitched, and then you stitch the background. So this is the finished first version, and then of course I had to do it again. And so I took a piece of khaki green 28 count linen, and this time I stitched it 1/1. Did I? Yeah, half stitch, 1/1. But this time I stitched the motif and not the background. Look at this. With the same thread. Isn't it the cutest? So let me try and show you both together, side by side. This was very quick to stitch, and it was lovely, and I love the outcome. I mean, you have to stitch your presents, right? Look at these. Aren't they the cutest? So a little hare or rabbit, a little blackbird, little heart. I love these. I really, really love these. I cannot show you the pattern because it has been passed on. It's on its way to Indiana, as it happens. to find a new home. I thought I'd share those with you. They're really, really lovely. It was a joy to stitch. I really liked the process. And I mean, stitching background versus motifs is a really fun experience because things pop up very differently from when you traditionally stitch. So it was really good. Now the way these are going to be fully finished, most probably, my godmother, who was one of the person who taught me how to cross stitch, is unfortunately not doing very well, and she's under rather heavy medication. And somewhere about 25, maybe 30 years ago, I had stitched a little pouch with Aida cloth that she had been using all along as a kind of a pill thing, pouch, whatever. And it's so old that she has, like, I don't know, she had to mend it several times. And the last time I saw her, she was complaining about the fact that it was high time I did something new for her because it was really like falling in, you know, it was just being too old to be used. And so my idea is to stitch a new little pouch on which there would be the two designs. So let me see if I can show you. So it would be some kind of like this shape. I'm sorry, bear with me just a sec. So see, there would be one. So it would have this shape basically, probably with a flap, and then so that would be one side, and then the other side obviously would have the other piece. So you'd have one side like this, and then the other like that. And so this will be done with my mom, obviously, somewhere in March. My godmother happens to have her birthday late April as well, so I wanted to be ready for her at that time. But I mean, it's not that big a deal to do, especially with my mom helping. So this will be the finished sort of look to it, with the two little patterns stitched on either side of the finished product. I think that's a good idea, and I hope she's gonna like it. I'm pretty sure she will. These are the finishes. This is not too bad. This is not too bad. Now, I would like to share some plans with you real quick. I've been thinking and thinking and thinking over and over again about my next big piece, which will be started only when I finish the dragons. So I need to hold my horses a bit, but I would love to stitch. This is another of Bev Palette PC's enabling thing, I'm sure. Dragons of Sumatra, I think I discovered thanks to Bev. I know Latisha is also stitching it. And Parchment Tapestry by Rosewood Manor is also, I think, has been enabled to me by Palette PC, Bev. So this is the pattern, Parchment Tapestry by Rosewood Manor. This is stunningly beautiful. So Karen Kluba, the designer, says that she has been inspired by some fire screens that she saw in old English houses when she visited England. I don't know when, a year or so before she actually designed this pattern. It's just gorgeous. So this is my next big one. And I just wanted to, I think it just so happens that I can't really stitch a piece exactly as it is charted. I don't know. This, I think, is from my mom, who cannot follow a recipe and who has to invent all the things. I'm not as creative as her by far, but still I had to find a twist. So that my first thought was, I want to convert the colors and stitch it in Suits for You silks, because Mieke, because Latisha, because anyway. And then while I was trying to convert the colors, I realized that Karen had put so much thought in the colors that she had chosen. They are incredibly, incredibly, I think really she did think so very much about the colors that I couldn't go and convert them by fear of being completely mistaken and doing some damage to the actual pattern. So I bought all the called for Weeks Dye Works, which are gorgeous. Anyway, let me try and show this to you. So these are the colors. The way they're put together on this piece is just amazing. So these are the beautiful, beautiful threads that will be used on this pattern. So color conversion was not an option. This is too perfect to be messed with. So then I looked at the pattern and I thought, what can I do with it? The thing that kind of not bothered me, but I thought I could change was the fact that this pattern is very rigid, right? It's very strict because of the honeycomb forms that stick out pretty much, are rather large if you think of it compared to the some of the flower motifs, and compared to this crazy awesome uneven beautiful alphabet, it's kind of a little bit too straight, too geometrical, too whatever. So here's the story that I told myself for this piece. So as I mentioned, Karen was inspired by fire screen from Old England manor house. I don't know the periods, but it may be 6th, 17th, 18th century fire screen. So I thought, well, let's pretend this was an actual fire screen that had been so weathered by time, that had been ripped out from here and there, and then beneath the actual design and motifs of the fire screen, it would show old papery kind of things with text underneath. So imagine like as if it was a piece of wallpaper, right? And then parts of it are ripped off, and then you discover something behind it. And so here's the idea. The idea is to stitch the piece with leaving out some of those honeycomb shapes and stitching letters instead, like old pieces of verses of whatever, which I still need to find what I'm going to stitch on, so that it loses a little bit of its rigidity, so to speak. And so we started working with my friend and colleague Laura, who is like as excited as me with the plan. So she had we had scanned the full pattern. She put it back together, and then she was able to take out some of the motifs to see whether we were happy with it. And so let me just give you a very we did a color print of what the idea is. So here's the idea. As you can see, it's just exactly the same thing, but we took out 3-4 of the different honeycombs windows, so to speak. See? And so the idea is actually to stitch the remaining showing motifs, and then everywhere it's blank, have some chart, some letterings, probably in backstitch, because I want to stitch this on 36 count 2/2, or 1/2, 1/2. But then I'll probably, in order to be able to write some at least meaningful excerpts of text, I want to stitch them small, so they're probably going to be backstitched. So we will be charting some texts in the empty spots. And what I'll probably do as well is, in order to have those honeycombs shapes faded, I will probably use 2 different greens. I think this is charted to be the bullfrog green by Weeks Dye Works, which is this one, which is quite dark. And what I may do is find another one a little bit lighter, so that I can stitch some parts as though they had faded over time. I hope this makes sense and it's just not utter rambling. So here's the plan. And I like the idea. I like that I have a story to tell. The other tricky part is going to be finding the right, letters or text that I want to write in. And the other idea would be to start some of the sentences with some of those capital letters, which are just beautiful. I mean, this alphabet is crazy awesome. So this is still being, planned and elaborated as we speak. And I love the process actually of, spending time thinking how I want to do it, what I want to do with it. And I'm going to show you before I stop rambling. I want to show you the fabric options that I'm considering. The first one is Vintage Country Mocha 36 count linen by Zweigart. I think the piece is charted for, bear with me just a sec, it's charted to be stitched on, Weeks Dye Works 32 count Parchment linen, and it's charted to be stitched, I think, 1/2. Now 32 count over 2 is going to be too big a piece for me, so I'm more looking at 36 count 1/2. I think that would be pretty good. And so let me show you Vintage Country Mocha 36 count by Zweigart. So this would be it. You all know this fabric, right? It's a tan, slightly mottled, which is good because I mean it's supposed to be an old weathered piece in the end. So that would be nice. Now I've got another option, and this is thanks to, again, XJU Designs. Her last fabric of the month, so January, and this is a 28 count cashel, but I would need to ask her for a special piece. So January's piece is called Roasted Nuts, and it's lighter, and it's more mottled, a little bit dirtier and somehow. Can you see this? Yeah, that's pretty true to life. So as always with Yukas's fabrics, it's more mottled, and this thing here, I think it's perfect. It's kind of stained here and there, which is exactly what I'm looking for. And I think that we did a floss toss with my partner the other day, and we actually stopped in the middle of our musings and said, oh well, that would work really well. Let me try and show you this without doing a whole mess. Yeah, I don't know if it really makes sense. But anyway, I think this is it. I think this fabric is a really good option. So what I need to do is ask Yukos at XJU Design if she could do a 36 count linen piece in this colorway and big enough for the finished pattern, because I think it would be perfect. I think it would really, really work. So I need to finish Dragons of Sumatra, guys, because then I can start Parchment Tapestry. This is awesome because it's another journey. I mean, the whole thing is, again, is exactly what, this craft is all about. Just like breaking your mind on how you want things to look like when they're finished, and trying things up and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's going to be another exciting one. I think this is it. So you've seen some whips, you've seen tiny finishes, you've seen plans. Yeah, I guess this is it then. Maybe one last word. So there won't be a word section today because I had this name place thing before. And I also want to give you a very quick update on a project I mentioned in my November update. As some of you may know, my aunt and I were thinking of organizing an exhibition of my stitching at her work. She works for a non-profit organization in our neighborhood, that really, whose aim is to bring people together, help them. This neighborhood, again, is a very underprivileged neighborhood. Lots of different communities, families with very little means, unfortunately. Some of them also with, social and language difficulties. And so the aim of this big organization is to bring people together, give them assistance in very many different ways, and also share the differences and the different universes of all those people. Obviously, the communities come from very, very different areas of the world, and so this organization seeks to put them together and learn to help them out in this country, and also be able to get to know each other and discover where they're from and what their history is, etc. So, the idea is the following. Just because I've been stitching for over a year now, since I took it back, my aunt and some of her colleagues thought it'd be awesome if I could actually showcase my pieces in their premises. And thinking it over, what we thought would be a good idea, and in the spirit of what this organization is all about, would be to find other people from the neighborhood that would have pieces embroidered, whatever object pieces, from their country, from their families, that they would be willing to share with us, and also tell the story about them. So the idea is, we've set a date now, so it's going to happen in June. And I had a first meeting with my aunt's colleagues yesterday. So our first idea is to use the organization's network to meet with a few women in their neighborhood that we know and that we think would be able to reach out to others and see if we can find among some families people who would have kept heirloom pieces. And I don't mean heirloom pieces as things that you keep for nothing in a trunk or anything, but I mean, as simple as a kitchen towel, for example, that might have been stitched by a grandma at some point, or some pieces of garments that may have been stitched in the traditional fashion of whichever country, notion bags, whatever. I mean, we know how our embroidered pieces were used to be used. I have napkins from my great-grandmother. I have kitchen towels again from my great-great-grandmothers, etc., etc. I've shown you pouches stitched in a traditional way from Niger and the Sahara Desert. So I'm sure that with using, meeting people from the neighborhood and talking to some of them, we can try and find out whether they would have embroidered or stitched pieces to showcase. And I think the important part of this idea is also to share the stories. So we would do an exhibition if we can, if we have pieces for that, in which we would showcase the pieces, but also, and most importantly, we would share the story behind them, whether it be about techniques, whether it be, of course, about origins, so where they came from and how they came to arrive in France, whether it be time frames, so whether it's old or relatively recent, which kind of tradition, which kind of fabrics, of threads, etc. So the idea is really to share around one specific craft that has been around forever, and whichever the techniques and the materials used is being done all over the world. So so far, one first meeting, the month is set. We need time to meet with people and to discuss what we want to show, and to also write and elaborate the stories behind the pieces that we managed to find. And so we will start meeting people up probably within the next 3-4 weeks. I cannot begin to tell you how excited I am. I mean, this is way beyond me showing a few of my things. This is about sharing this particular hobby or craft with others that I'm sure I'm going to discover magnificent, awesome things and stories and people. And I'm getting very, very, very excited about this project. So if you're interested, obviously, I will follow up on this and tell you the journey as it unfolds. It's just, yeah, that's another part of picking this craft up again that I just love. Besides sharing it with you all. So yeah, I think this is it. It's almost an hour long. That's way enough. I hope I didn't ramble too much. I hope you managed to see correctly what I had to show. Thank you again to all of you who have, you know, been around for some time, and for the new ones. I mean, I know Latisha's lovely shout out, and Mieke's telling of her Paris trip has brought on new subscribers and new visitors, and I'm so very grateful for that. It's just awesome to, you know, to enlarge one's environment. That I'm very, very thankful to them both, and to all of you who take time to comment and support me and my journey and my crazy stitches. So thank you again. Wishing you a lovely Sunday morning, evening, night, wherever you may be. I hope to see you soon, and until then, stitch well, be kind, au revoir.